Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackman.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackman, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football, it's up for grabs, it's covered in the end zone by Will Blackman for a Green Bay touchdown!
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackman, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I am Rick Bucher. You can see me on FS1. You can see my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can follow me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. He is Will Blackman, NFL vet, Super Bowl champ. You can see him on NFL Network, and you can follow him on Twitter at Will Blackman, and you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. All right. This is part 2. We're going to continue the conversation that we had with Charles Woodson, Hall of Famer, friend of Will Blackman, former teammate. We'll continue that. So here is the rest of our conversation with Charles. What's your biggest moment? Like when you think of the moment where it was the biggest that you faced in your career.
Like me being on the field, like being in a pressure moment, or just like the biggest accomplishment. What do you mean?
I mean either one, but I meant specifically that situation you were in where you felt like, you know what, this is make or break time for something big.
Let me jump in here. What about when you first came to Green Bay to pretty much like reestablish your new identity? What was that like after everything you went through in Oakland?
You know, that was an interesting time. You know, because
it was the same thing, right?
I had a lot of
all this bad stuff about you, right?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because it was a lot of people that were doubting me, and I never doubted myself as a player. Like I knew I was good, but it was a funny period of time to where people were, you know, saying different things like, you know, he can't play anymore, he can't run anymore. And I'll be thinking to myself, like, what are they talking about? Like, you know, what are they seeing? You know, to say these different things about me losing the step. And I was, you know, at the time I left, you know, there in 2006, I was, you know, in my late 20s or whatever. Like, I lost the step. Like, what are they talking about? You know, I never quite understood it. And you know, that's kind of the crazy thing in free agency at that time is that I didn't have a lot of people checking for me at that point in time, and you know that's really how I ended up in Green Bay is because I didn't have a lot of suitors out there that wanted me on a team and wanted me on their team, you know, to help contribute, and that was weird for me, you know, and I just needed to, you know, have an opportunity, man, to go out there and just be a football player because at the end of the day, I can play football. I don't care where I'm at, you know, what team or what position, cold or hot. You know, I can play football, you know, just give me the opportunity to do it. And so I think, you know, for me, you know, coming out there, and it was never about any pressure that anybody else put on me in order to perform, you know, I just needed to be on the field. If you put me on the field, I'm good.
By the way, so when are you going to get tired of Will, like, following in every footstep? I mean, you win a Super Bowl, he wins a Super Bowl. You become a wine connoisseur. He becomes a wine connoisseur. You go into TV. He goes into TV. I'm just wondering. Like,
listen, if the man creates a path, I'm gonna walk it. Damn it.
Hey man, hey Will is a smart dude, man. You know what? And I give him credit for that, man. He's a good dude, man, and it was a pleasure for me to be around Will, man, because I watched Will and, you know, watched the way Will worked, and Will was always trying to get better. You know, I know he dealt with some injuries himself. But I know a young man who studied the game and he studied the guys that were there. I know he was one of the guys that was always looking at myself, always looking at Al. You know, and trying to figure out, you know, what we were doing, how were we able to sustain.
Yeah.
So, you know, if he wants to follow me, it's all good because I know I got a good one following me, so it's all good.
By the way, just what was it? What was it like to have a young Will Blackman? See him show
where
up.
are we going with this?
You know what? Because this is an opportunity for me to, I know Charles has stories. Charles has insight into my podcast partner. Am I not going to take advantage of that?
It's not about me. I was chill, man. Actually, you know what I want to talk about? So. No, seriously. So there's a.
I will. I love the way you took control of that.
Yeah, see. He dodged that turn.
I'm telling you the stories, and I'm not a very good storyteller anyway. But honestly, like, conversations and times that I've been with Will, always good times. But to be honest with you, Rick, I couldn't even tell you all the things we talked about, all the things we did, man. I just, that's kind of between me and old Will.
Fair enough.
But what I do remember, you silly. I remember, like we were always trying to figure out, like, that one year you never practiced, right? And we were like, man, how the hell is this dude out here making plays, right? So I remember one night I came back to the facility. It was like 7:30. And you were in there, and you were up there, and I kind of like peeked my head in the room, and you were like, "Hey, come and sit down." And so I sat down, and when I turned on the light, it's almost like you were a chemist. You like made your own game plan within the game plan, and that's when you showed me. You were like, "Hey, I just picked 3 plays that I'm gonna jump, and other than that, I just play ball."
Right.
And I remember that people asked me, hey, where'd you learn how to watch film? Because that was my issue. When I got there, I was a good athlete, but I never understood, like, football, because everyone's fast, everyone's strong, everyone, can play ball. But the difference was the film, and that's when I found out. I don't know if you remember that story at all, but I remember walking in there. I remember you picked 3 plays. Well,
the thing is that, you can never force anything on anybody because everybody learns the game at their own speed. It took me years to figure out how I needed to watch the film and what I needed to extract from the film that I was watching, and really honing in on, like telling you, hey, I'm watching different formations up and down the field, and I know what a team majors in, whether they like really major in 11 personnel, or if it's a team that, is kind of old school and they run their 21 personnel pro offense, what they like to do on first down, second down, third down, whether it's on their own 20 or on our 20, you start picking up different things. And so you're able to pick out, different plays. So, I always wanted to go into the game, once I kind of got that experience of going into the game and saying, man, look, if I see a certain formation at a certain spot in time during the game, and I 95% know what they're going to run, I'm not going to hesitate. And I think that's what happens to players in the game today is that they're not quite sure. So a good player can't become a great player because he's afraid to react because he's not quite sure. If you're going to stand flat-footed and not go make your play, you're not going to be able to be great. You can be a good player, you can play for a little while, but you're not going to be able to advance in this game for a long time. It's like one of my quotes is work hard and make plays. After you work hard to put yourself in a position to be on the field, now you got to go make plays.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, for you to come in there and kind of watch film and then hear me say, I'm going to jump these 3 plays. Now, what you just said too is after that, like, let's say I feel like I know what's going to happen. 100% this is what's going to happen. And then that play doesn't happen the way I think it's going to develop. Now I just got to be an athlete.
Right, just play honest ball.
At that point, at that point you just got to play football. But you want to put yourself in the game to where you're making educated guesses. You're not just out there guessing, but it's an educated guess to where you can be more right than you are wrong.
And that's a good point because that brings me to another point. When we played Tampa, okay, we were in Tampa Bay, and I remember we were in cover 2, and you looked at me and you said, "Will, lock your man and take him deep." I'm like, "Dog, it's cover 2." You like lock your man and take him deep, and you told Nick Collins, you told him to push to the post, and I'm like, whatever, yo, I'm gonna listen to Charles, and all of a sudden, I take my man and I just hear the crowd roaring. And I turned around. That's when you picked off Brian Greasy and took it to the house. Like you knew they were running it out and go, out by number 2. I was pissed. But I knew off, by the way.
Yep. And I knew they had because they ran a little option route, like a little option with Warwick Dunn, and he came out there, and I just kind of sat flat-footed. A lot of times in the game, you want to have the appearance of not being ready, or not being in tune with what's going on. So, that was my thing. A lot of times, I just kind of would stand there and I'll kind of tap my feet. And if you ever saw me, if there's any clip of me ever kind of just sitting there tapping my feet, like kind of jumping up and down, in really short taps, I see something. Or I know something's coming.
I see something.
You know what I'm saying? I see something, man, and I'm about to go. And he came out there and ran that little, option route, man, and sure enough, man, I jumped, run it, and it's a 70-yard touchdown for a score. So,
and Rick,
but again, man, it's all about believing in what you're seeing, man, and going with it.
Yeah. By the way, you are on Twitter. It's at Charles Woodson, and you're a driving instructor. You're a dog owner whisperer. You are many, many things on social media. I'm just reading here. Tip of the day: when walking your dog, carry at least 2 poop bags. IJS. I'm just saying. I assume is the shorthand for that. What inspired that? Was this a personal experience?
It was, man. We got a dog about 2 years ago, and you take your dog for a walk. You expect him to go out. You expect him to pee, and then it's time for him to go poop. He goes poop, and then you back in the house. Boom. That's supposed to be your routine, And so, I'm walking my dog, man, and he pees, and then he poops, and then he wants to keep on walking. So I walk him around a little bit more, and all of a sudden, man,
more action.
It's like, whoa, you about to again? Like, how is that even possible? For what? It's already crazy that they can pee at least 12 times in a walk.
Yeah.
But then the poop twice too. I was in shock. I didn't know.
I didn't know.
So that was just a little tip, man, just to let you know, man. Hey, if you take your dog out for a little leisurely walk, man, don't walk out the house with one bag. One bag, man. At least 2.
Now, is tip of the day, because you had another one. If you're driving and you approach a 4-way stop first, then you go first. Do they not teach this anymore? Go!
101.
It may be the most frustrating thing, man. It happens to me all the time here, man, where I'm at in Florida. And there'll be somebody sitting at the stop sign, and they're already stopped. So I'm not talking about getting there at the same time, and you're kind of not figuring out who goes first. Does the person on the right go? Or no. I'm talking about you're stopped, and then I roll up and I stop. If you're already stopped and I roll up, you go. Get out of there, man.
So I had a tweet about
Don't wait for me, and then get frustrated when I don't go. You were already there. Go.
You are passionate about this
stuff. No, I'm getting a little peed off right now,
man. Charles, this is what happens when you live in a state with a lot of old people, man. They probably didn't even know they were stopped. Yeah. They didn't see you. They got. That's what I'm guessing. The thing that gets me,
you in a retired state.
Yeah. Is people who sit in the fast lane, and if you spend any, and I'm sure, Will, you've experienced this a lot in L.A. and Orange County.
You remember he lived in Oakland for a while.
Yeah. The rules. Like what happened? What happened to the etiquette and the rules? That's what I want to know.
Getting over, get over and let the person in the fast lane go. Right.
Yeah.
Back then they moved over. Now they get pissed off.
Yeah.
Dude, I think they scratched that from the handbook. I don't think it's in there anymore, man. I think it's a lost art.
All right, listen, I'm gonna flip it real quick.
Lost art, man.
Charles, I'm gonna flip it real quick. I gotta ask a question.
Yeah.
I'm going with this with Green Bay. You believe Mike was getting all the massages?
Wow.
Hey, man, listen.
Wow.
Listen.
I'll probably have to plead the fifth on that, man. Wow. What do I know? What do I know, man? I'm not in the building.
Listen, I don't believe it though. I don't believe it. That's my.
I can't go for that, Will. I mean, I know Mike, man. I know Mike loves the game, man.
Right?
I just can't find it in my heart to believe that he would blow off a meeting, with staff and quarterbacks, and actually, I think it was like reported like he was getting massages in the building as well, right? Like he was in the building.
I think he was in. Well, yeah, because there's only like 3 massage parlors in Green Bay, I think.
Yeah, I can't go for that. I can't go for that, Will. I don't. That's not believable to me
at all. Now I did say, like, I was on the herd. I said some teams Fridays, there's a sign up sheet, and usually Fridays we have like a players only meeting, like we conduct the meeting, and you might get some coaches, but still, I don't believe Mike was down. I can't picture Mike going down there and getting a massage.
No, we're not doing the meeting. I mean, when everything's all said and done,
right?
But I don't believe he's blowing off a meeting and saying, "Hey guys, I got something important I got to do," and all of a sudden he's sliding off to a little dark room somewhere getting I don't believe that.
Charles, what do you make of just the takedown of Mike and Aaron? And I mean, I can't remember a story about the Green Bay Packers, and especially maybe a quarterback of Aaron's abilities, have a story like this written about them. Like Green Bay just seemed always kind of one of those insular places. I always compare it to San Antonio in the NBA. It's one of those places where their business wasn't out on the street, and you didn't get negative stories like this. At least I don't remember.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the attack on Aaron. I don't like the attack on Mike. I'm real funny about if I'm in the same locker room with you for 5, 6, 7 years, and I don't know you don't like me, and then all of a sudden, some story comes out and you didn't like me, and you got all these negative things to say about me. I don't respect that.
Right.
It's like if I had an issue with Will Blackman, Will needed to know that when I was in Green Bay, and then if I ever came out with a story, then people can corroborate and say, yeah, Charles didn't like Will in Green Bay.
Yeah.
So I can understand that story coming out, but for all these stories that come out, attacking a man about this and that, I'm not a big fan of that, man. If you guys during the tenure of your career, seemingly had a good relationship, and then all of a sudden it appears that you didn't, but that person didn't know it. I don't like that, man.
Speaking of, I was joking about Will following in your footsteps, but I am curious. You guys aren't alone when it comes to becoming interested in wine and being vintners and doing all that. What do you think it is that? And it seems to be like a somewhat new thing among, I don't know, professional athletes in particular. I mean, just Drew Bledsoe. I know any number of guys who have gotten into it. What do you think has been the attraction?
I think the simple answer is that this exposure. I mean, I think it's like anything, man. If you're exposed to something, then you have the opportunity to either engage or not engage. I think most guys, for the most part, are not interested in wine. It's like for myself, in college or growing up as a young man, if you drink. You drink beer or you drink, whatever vodka or,
sure.
Hennessy, cognac or whatever it may be. That's what you drink. Nobody was drinking wine. Nobody even thought about it, But, for myself, for me, it was proximity, being in Napa Valley and then being in wine country is like, wow, what is wine country? What is that all about? And so, myself, being exposed to it, I started drinking wine, really enjoyed it, and created a label. And then when you're around other people, when I go to Green Bay and then there's a Will Blackman there, and we go out on a weekend, a Saturday. I know Will tends tells the famous story about us in Minnesota. You know, you sit down and have a nice dinner and you have a couple glasses of wine. It's like, man, you know, it's really supposed to be taboo to have a drink, you know, the night before the game. You know, and so all of a sudden, you know, you kind of exposed to something that you didn't feel was supposed to happen. And I think that's how, you know, those things kind of, you know, organically happen, you know, that way. So I think that's the case. You know, it's, you know, proximity and, you know, just exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, for me, it was definitely, I guess I can piggyback what you're saying. It's the lifestyle. You know, like you said, it's a different world. It's a different way people go about things. And yeah, actually, which is funny, I tell you know, people that on the when we go on road trips, road games, you will always take the DBs out to dinner, and it was a lifestyle. We always went to a nice steakhouse. Everyone stayed in their suits. You made sure no one came with jeans and lug boots on. You know, and it was cool about it. It was funny is after that day, I always had wine before a game, which is funny.
Did you have a good game, or what was it that inspired that? Was there anything aside from the experience?
We had a pretty good damn game right there.
That was a great day for the squad. That was a great day for the boys, for the back end, man. We yeah, that first time you got that, we balled out, you know, and I don't, you know. That's our deal. You know, I don't want to be sitting here, you know, and people calling, oh, he's advocating, doing. Nah, that was our deal. And you know, for us, we went out. We had a fantastic game. I had an interception. Will had a punt return for a touchdown. I think Nick ran one back for a touchdown. So I mean, it was a good day, but it was. I think it was. You know, for the guys that were with me, it was like, I mean, you can sit down and have a glass of wine and everything is going to be okay. You know what I mean? Nobody's talking about, you know, sitting down and having a fifth or whatever and trying to go out the next morning. No, it wasn't that. You know, you sit down, you have a glass or two of wine with your dinner. You sit and relax, you chit-chat, man, and you talk about, because what we would do is we would talk about things in general, life in general, but then we talked about the game. You know, we talk about, you know, different things we might have seen on film. You know, what we thought about the opponent. So it was not only a time to just socialize as friends, but also a time to kind of game plan. You know, about, you know, what you was going to do the next day, and that made it fun, man. That's how, you know, great teams kind of come together. You know, within the team is different people getting together, man, and sitting down and breaking bread with each other.
All right, one last thing. So I've been on Twitter lately telling funny Al Harris stories. I mean, you probably saw a couple of them.
Oh man! Hey, oh man! Classic.
Listen, so I have one more story I'm gonna tell. But what was your funniest Al Harris moment when we played?
My funniest Al Harris moment.
Can I share one real quick? What about
you can share one real quick. I just want to, you know, but this for my funny Al Harris moment was before. Nah, you know what? Let me change that, because the funniest is when I first got there, and me and Al left the spring game. Not the spring game. I'm sorry, spring. I think it's
preseason game.
The preseason game. We were both, you know, headed out of Lambeau, man, and we're about to leave and go home. I'm going back to Atlanta, and he's going, I think, to Florida. And me and him walk out of the stadium early before the family night scrimmage is over with towels on our head, like nobody was gonna know.
You guys,
like nobody was gonna know it was us.
Hey,
so,
private jet home?
Say it again.
Private jet home?
No, I think I had a regular flight. I don't think I took a private jet home, but you know, we walked out of there, man, like we were incognito. And I remember Al telling me, man, because he ended up I left, and he ended up going back because he got a phone call about leaving, and he said he went up to Mike's office, man, and he said, Mike said, Al, don't you know this is one of the most highly secured facilities in the country? Did you guys really think y'all could sneak out of here with towels on your head?
Rick, this is at halftime.
Oh, man.
It's at halftime, Rick. Because I remember we came back out. I was like, where did Charles I'll go. He went home.
Man, that was crazy, man.
That's a vet move right there, bro.
That was a vet move.
Wood for me was
what was yours, man?
Listen, when we came out for warm-ups, I already told a bunch on Twitter, but when we came out for warm-ups, I remember Al came out sprinting because I think he needed like 2 more picks or something to get a bonus. Something I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Or I think he was in a drought. He ran out the tunnel and he had his hands up. And you called Al over like he was your son. You said, "Come here." You said, "Let me see your hands." You said, "You gotta stick them on." He said, "Wood, I need a pick." Because remember, Rick, one of our head trainer at the time, Pepper Bird, he had a collection of art, like old football items, and he had probably like this jar of Stickum from like 1972 or whatever. And apparently, Al went on that cabinet and took some Stickum out and smeared it all over his gloves.
So he wasn't going to touch anything before we actually got on the field. That's
you said, "Al, you know you about to get suspended if they catch you."
That's pretty good.
But here's the other thing, man. I used to hate he used to wear them white gloves, man. I never wanted him to wear white gloves, man. Why you wear white gloves, man? I hated that shit, man. Oh man,
he says so.
Dude, you got a great memory too, man. I got to tell you that. Like I listen to you, I read your stories on Twitter, man. I'm like, damn, man. Like when you talked about what Al used to lift, all chest and all. Oh man, dude, I cried, man.
That's the truth.
He was all bench press, man, all day long, man. That's all he wanted to do, bench press and probably dips or something.
All right, my man.
Hey,
man.
Hey, Charles, before we let you go, just one last thing, because I live here in the Bay Area, and you are synonymous with the Raiders and the Raiders in Oakland, doing 2 different stints, obviously started with them. I keep trying to wrap my head around the image of them being in Vegas. And it's just, for me, it's a jarring thing. And I know they went to L.A. Somehow Vegas feels different to me. I wonder for you, and you've probably been asked this, but just the legacy, what they meant for you in your career, and the idea that you'll be seeing the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know, maybe it doesn't touch you. I just wonder what's that. Have you thought about it?
No, it absolutely touches me because my memories of the Raiders are all Oakland. You know, it's being drafted there in '98. You know, playing there for 8 years, leaving and coming back. You know, to a grand reception.
Yep.
You know, by Raiders fans. You know, a lot of fond memories playing there in the Coliseum. You know, just hanging out in the city of Oakland, man, and all of the people and the friends that I made out there. You know, going there as a young man, growing into a man, the whole nine. Like it's all Oakland. It's all silver and black. You know, there in the black hole, and never, you know, to me, never foreseeing them leaving there. I really feel like that Mark wanted to keep the team there, but at the same time, it wasn't able to happen. So. To me, it's really, you know, bittersweet moment to know that they're going to be leaving Oakland, but at the same time, you know, happy, you know, for a new future because I know I played in that stadium and I know it was time for a new stadium. And you know, a lot of times, man, it's hard to refuse, you know, somebody that's really laying out the red carpet for you to come there and establish something, and that's what. Las Vegas did for the Raiders is they laid out the red carpet, and the fact that they're going to have a brand new shiny stadium there in Vegas, a place where Mark Davis can truly call his own, you know, as the Raiders owner for the Vegas community. I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited, for the future of the Raiders.
Okay.
Sad, of course, that you would leave that community there in Oakland, but excited for the future. So, that's kind of where I sit with that.
The thing I'll always respect is, and I don't know if you remember this, I want to say you were there when Matt Flynn was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
I remember seeing you in training camp, and they were making a big deal about Matt Flynn, and he was going to do this, and he was going to do that, and you didn't say anything negative. I just got the vibe instantly when somebody asked you the question. However you answered, I went, "Uh-oh, this is not going to be what it's advertised." It was just like you had such a keen sense of who guys were and who they weren't, and you didn't buy into any of the bull, and you did it in the most respectful way, but it was just clear to me you knew what was up at that time.
Well, I mean, I played with Matt, and Matt could be a serviceable quarterback, serviceable backup quarterback.
Yeah.
But when you look at certain things that happen, Matt Flynn has played a game, I think, against Detroit late in the season one time when we were about to head to the playoffs, and he threw for 6 touchdowns, and I mean, unbelievable game.
Yeah.
That's one game. It's one game.
Yeah.
It's one game at the end of the season, and then we were playing the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions were a good team at the time, and he had an outstanding game, and so it's like, it happens all the time in the NFL or any game. A guy can have a good week, a good month, and all of a sudden, he's the best thing that happened since, whatever. And he ends up going to another team, and they pay him a bunch of money, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. What happened to the 6 touchdown guy? It's just not the same. So, I mean, I felt like he could be a good quarterback, but I think he's probably better served as being the backup quarterback and coming in certain situations like he did late in that season. But yeah, man, I mean, sometimes you just gotta pump the brakes, man, and you wish for the best, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Real. And appreciate you joining us here on the podcast.
Yeah, I kept you longer than we should, Charles. My apologies.
You are always welcome, and wishing you the best going forward. Maybe Will, with his connections at NFL Network, can hook you up, or we'll get the guys at FS1 rolling.
Hey, Will, you got a little pull over there, Will?
Listen, as soon as you get your gold jacket, you're a shoo-in. That's what I heard.
There you go. There you go.
My man.
You think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding?
Hey, man. Always good rapping with you, brother.
All right, my man.
All right. Thank you, Charles.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
All right, Rick.
All right.
Appreciate you guys, man.
You got it. All right.
Yep.
All right. That does it for this episode of Bucher and Blackman, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, or even if you don't, drop us a rating, review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Screenshot the review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be entered for a chance to win some prizes. All right, so I'm
gonna need some energy when you say Bucher and Blackman, Bucher and Friends. Like, come on, man.
Oh, I gotta pick it up.
Yeah. What is this?
All right.
So were you gonna ask me? Sorry.
So I know your relationship with Charles means a lot to you, and I was trying to ask the questions that I was most interested in without feeling like I was violating your friendship with Charles. So how did I do?
You did awesome.
There weren't any questions where you're like,
no, come on, man.
Don't ask.
No way.
Okay.
I'm a great DJ too. Like, I'll remix the conversation if I need to.
Yeah, you certainly did that. We never got to the Will Blackman stories. We got to the Al Harris stories.
He had a chance. There weren't any really. He said I was real observant and attentive. I never had any like crazy stories over there.
And you know what? I kind of believe that. That's actually, I've never asked that thinking that I'm going to get some down and dirty story on you, because I'm just not convinced that they exist. Sadly. They're not out there.
I was well behaved.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be well behaved, and we're going to wrap this podcast up. As I said, you know where to leave us a rating and screenshot us the review so that we can do something for you. All right. In our next podcast, I did a story recently for Bleacher Report on Blake Griffin and sat down with him a couple of times while we were in Detroit and put together basically a podcast of the conversations that we had regarding making the move to Detroit. What, if anything, he misses about LA? How did he get the Hollywood image that everybody put on him that made people think that he was not going to be long for Detroit? All that in the next podcast. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening.